My name is Charles Taylor, Reverend Charles M. Taylor. I'm the senior minister here at Universal Truth Center. I want to welcome you to our church, and I want to welcome you to this group violence intervention forum. Thank you for coming out on this early Saturday morning. Could have been at the beach, right, or at the mall, or even doing a little bit more sleeping, right? All right, so I want you to give yourselves a round of applause for just being here this early morning. We are here because we care about our community. So thank you for coming out to this meeting. It gives me great pleasure and honor to be able to welcome our community, government, and law enforcement leaders to this very important meeting as we continue to work together to implement solutions to eliminate gun violence and other violence in our community, in our beautiful city of Miami Gardens. Yes? Yes. So at this time, I want to recognize some of the following officials and staff who are in attendance or who will soon be here. First and foremost, I want to recognize my staff minister who's in attendance, the Reverend Dr. Anna Price. Can you just raise your hand and stand? Yes. From the city of Miami Gardens, Police Chief Noah Pratt. Is he here? I can see him. Is she here? Okay. All right, there you are. Okay. I didn't see you. Okay. All right. My bad. All right. Councilman David Williams, I saw him. Yes, okay, stand. Councilwoman Felicia Robinson, is she here? Did I see her? No? Okay, so she'll soon be here. And we have many other police officers from the city of Miami Gardens. Can you just wave your hands and just thank you for being here? Officers, thank you. All right, from the Miami-Dade County Police Captain George Pierre, is he here? Okay, thank you. Public Defender Carlos Martinez, is he in the audience? Okay, he might be on the way. Okay, there he is, okay. Mr. Wayne Rawlins, is he here? Rawlins, okay. Can you please stand so we can see you? Okay. From the city of Miami, Assistant Chief of Police Manuel Morales, is he here? Yes, okay. From the State Attorney's Office, Assistant State Attorney Jessica Sinkfield, okay, thank you. Community Outreach Representative Janine Jones, okay. Mayor Philip Levine had a representative here. He's running for governor. Chris Hud Walker, can you please stand? Okay, in the back. From the office of Congresswoman Farika Wilson, Outreach Director Mr. Charles Scott. I didn't see him yet. Okay, is he? Okay, so I guess he's on his way. And from the Circle of Brotherhood, Brother Lau Gradison, is he in all? Okay. And I want to thank everybody else for being here this morning. And we want to get started with a word of prayer. So let's just take a moment to become present as we acknowledge the presence of God. The one presence, one power of God the good. And I invite you now in this moment to open your hearts and your minds to this forum. And allow the ideas and the creativity of Spirit to speak to each one of us. Allow us to be able to continue to work together in a spirit of cooperation and support as we allow God to lead us into creating a city that is safe, a city that is beautiful, a city that is open for all to come. We thank you, God, for leading us and guiding us, and we pray your blessings upon this meeting. As we release, we let go, and we let God. And so it is. Amen and amen. Amen. And now I'm going to call up Valanda. Okay, I wrote it wrong. Valanda Hope to lead us in the meeting. Valanda? Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Valanda Hope, and I am a member of Antioch Missionary Baptist Church in this beautiful city of Miami Gardens. I am going to speak to my task today is simply to give you an overview of PACT and the flow of the agenda. PACT is a grassroots organization. It's a coalition of 40 congregations and universities throughout Miami-Dade County. Our purpose today is to come to hold officials accountable for fairness and for justice. And we, ourselves, we come together as leaders, we come together as clergy so that we can combine together as one to come up with to solve the problems that are affecting our families and our communities. PACT's purpose starts with the listening process, which involves hundreds of people and small group discussion. In November 2016, our members voted on gun violence to be our priority, the issue for research, and to find solutions to be implemented. Throughout our research, we decided to focus on intervention programs for young adults 18 to 24 years old. And we found several programs with long track records for reducing gun violence in this area. Those are Ceasefire, Office of Neighborhood Safety, Group Violence Intervention, and Cure Violence. Back in March of 2017, we asked and received a commitment from the state attorney, public defender, City of Miami, Miami Gardens, and Miami-Dade County to work together to implement one of these 3 programs. And in December of 2017, Director Perez, Lieutenant Carvo announced that they were ready to release the RFP for group violence and intervention. In March 2018, Director Perez and a dozen of other officials went to John Jay College in order to participate in an intensive orientation program. So now, our purpose today again is for all of us to come together to get a deeper understanding of this program, group violence and intervention, and to ensure that our community is ready for its implementation. Enough is enough. We want our youth back, we want our communities back, and we are here to do whatever it is we need to do to make this happen. Now, for the overflow of everything, we're going to talk about the problem, we're going to discuss the difference between this program, group violence intervention, and the other programs. We're going to get a report from Miami-Dade County and Miami Gardens on talking about where they are now in implementing this program. We will also hear from the panels an in-depth factor, long and short term, of what the program is going to be, how it's going to be successful. And of course, we're going to give you or allow you the time to ask questions. Each one of you should have a note card. If you don't have a note card right now, please raise your hand. And you're going to be able to write on that note card a question, and at the end of our forum, you will be allowed to ask. We will ask questions. You will be able to ask and answer questions. Do anyone raise your hand if you do not have a note card, and someone will help you or assist you at this time? Good. My task is completed, and so now we're going to continue to go on with our agenda.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Anna Jackson, and I am the pastor of Sellers Memorial United Methodist Church, which is located on the corner of Northwest 83rd Street and 14th Avenue. I'm also the co-chair of the steering committee on gun violence for people acting in the community together, and I am a proud resident of the city of Miami Gardens. I stand before you today because gun violence is serious. It's a serious issue, and the reduction and elimination of the incidents and the deaths because of it needs to stop. Amen. I've never been told I don't have a big mouth, but why is it so important to me? because no 17-year-old should be sifting through her Sweet 16 pictures to find the perfect picture of her friend to put in his funeral program. And she should not have to ask her mother how she should console her friend who is physically getting ill and her grades are dropping because of the loss that they both shared. And no parent should have to go to a ring ceremony or a graduation ceremony to accept the class ring or the diploma of their child because he's no longer with us. But this is exactly what happened to my daughter's classmate family, Randall Dwayne Robinson III, after he was fatally wounded just blocks away from his home because he was going to the store. Randall was a student at Miami Northwestern Senior High School, and he was just starting his junior year when his life was taken senselessly. Why is the reduction of gun violence so important? Because no pastor should have to maneuver around police on a Sunday morning on her way to worship and find her congregants outside because they heard gunshots. But this is exactly what happened to me on a Sunday morning in March of 2017 when the senseless killing of 20-year-old Anthony Gilmore was done just a block away from my church. Why is the reduction of gun violence so important to me? Because no one should participate in the genocide of their own community. But that's exactly what's happening in our communities today. And that is why I stand before you today, eagerly awaiting the implementation of group violence intervention in Miami-Dade County and the city of Miami Gardens. And now I want to share with you just a little bit about how we got to this point, where we have been, and where we are going. At packed house meetings in 2016 and 2017, our members told personal stories of the effects of gun violence. And what we learned is we're all affected. Friends, family, congregants, most of us know someone who has either been a victim of or has been affected by gun violence. And though there have been improvements in the gun violence rate in recent years, there's still far, far too much of it. In the past month, numerous individuals right here in this wonderful city of Miami Gardens have lost their lives, have been killed in homicides, their lives cut shortly, unduly. Michael Mathis, just 21 years old, was a victim of a drive-by shooting in Miami Gardens on June 16, 2018. Tristan Hansen, just 24 years old, was shot in Miami Gardens on Sunday, June 17th, while he was visiting his father for Father's Day. And Stephen Campbell, 23, was killed together with Donald Armstrong in Miami Gardens on June 23rd while parked at a traffic light. And Donald Armstrong, 22, also was killed along with him. Maceo Wright, 26, as of July 9th, he was the 6th homicide victim in Miami Gardens since June 2016. And what breaks my heart so much, Darren Williams Jr. and Darren Williams III remains in critical condition. Friends of this family said Darren Jr. had just graduated from the Firefighters Academy. Someone who was about to commit his life to helping and saving lives had his life taken so senselessly and so cruelly. And that's why I'm standing before you today.
I'm Daryl Arnold, and I'm the co-chair of the Gun Violence Committee of PACT. Reverend Anna just spoke very powerfully about what's going on in the community with gun violence. We all hear of gun violence. What captures our attention in particular are mass shootings. But after a recent mass shooting, as Mayor Gilbert of Miami Gardens says, what people didn't recognize is that beyond having one murder, what we see is murder after murder after murder, one at a time, and those shootings are happening across the community every day. That, unfortunately, is far too much the reality in Miami Gardens and the city of Miami and county of Miami-Dade. Though group violence doesn't target gun control, which the mayor had been speaking about, it is an intervention that has proven to reduce gun violence and homicide and injury rates throughout the country. So you're going to hear about that today. Next slide, please. There has been improvement in the reducing the number of homicides of a dramatic sort really since the 1980s. In 1985, Miami was considered the murder capital of the United States with the gang violence at that time. So work has been done. Gun violence here is lower than in many major cities. According to Trace, a nonprofit news outlet focusing on gun violence, it's 15th nationwide over the 5 preceding years. Yet, certain areas in the county have a higher number of gun-related deaths than others. Unfortunately, we've seen in the last month at least those 5 murders in Miami Gardens. That is not what the average is per month at all here, but it's been a particularly trying time for the community. Next slide, please. In Miami-Dade, there's been an average of 200 people shot and killed each year over the past 6 years. That's up through 2016. In that year, there were 167 gun-related homicides. In 2016, there were also an additional 500 people shot that did not die, adding up to over 680 people shot in a year. That's 2 people per day in the Miami-Dade County area. We don't have gunshot homicide numbers for Miami Gardens at our disposal publicly, but in 2016, the city reported 22 murders, and in 2017, it reported 19. Unfortunately, as we've seen at the beginning of the slide, there have been these tragic high number in the recent month. Of those who are victims of gun violence, 18 to 24-year-olds are the highest group. People aged 24 and under account for 40% of all gun-related homicide victims. And this group is made up predominantly of young African-American males. From 2006 to 2015, an average of 30 children and teenagers were killed annually in Miami-Dade County. Here we see some of the pictures of the tragic incidents that made the city news, and we'll be coming back to those. I want to talk first, though, about some of the non-personal costs, but the costs that are economic in nature. From the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, we see there are quite severe economic costs to a single homicide. There are costs related to crime scene per shooting, hospital stays, criminal justice inquiries, court costs and so on included there, the incarceration costs, victim support, the lost revenue from taxes. These are for both the homicide and the injury shooting costs. For the crime scene, for example, you have the crime cleanup as well as the policing costs. The hospital costs can include costs for surgery for those who are injured, as well as the EMI, emergency room visits. So there's an enormous economic cost. We're talking about $775,000 per homicide shooting for, on the one hand, and $773,000 per injury shooting based on one suspect. The city costs you see on the left side for the homicides, on the right for the injury shooting. County costs, state costs. Based on 2 suspects, we're talking about $1.5 million for homicide costs. This is a lot of money. Now, a lot of times we can get people to support initiatives in paying for crime prevention and incarcerations and courts. It's harder often to motivate people to pay for prevention. Group violence intervention is, though, money well spent to prevent this later loss of money. Beyond those economic numbers, we come back to the personal, to the individual, to the tragic that we all know too well. In 2013, just less than a mile from St. Thomas University, where I'm a professor, Tequila Forche was shot while having her hair braided at her grandmother's house, preparing to go for her first day at Carroll City Middle School, where a lot of you probably have relatives, children, nieces and nephews who study. Her life was cut short because of a stray bullet, an unnecessary, shameful, tragic incident. Unfortunately, not singular. Not in Miami Gardens, but in Northwest Miami-Dade, Jada Page in 2016, an 8-year-old, shot and killed while getting ready to go to the movies with her father. Just wanting to spend a little quality time with her dad, hit by a stray bullet. It was her first week of the 4th grade. It doesn't end here. Carter Page, 6 years old, shot and killed by stray fire in 2016 in Northwest Miami-Dade as well, in his apartment complex as he was on the way to buy some candy. You can't go to the movies, you can't buy candy, you can't get your hair braided. It's too dangerous. What we have is lost loves, lost lives, lost opportunities. These are the most severe of the costs. Understanding the financial costs and statistics helps us with the analysis. We should be willing to pay those front-end costs to save those back-end costs, just if we're rational economic actors. If we're people who care about the safety of our community, care about lost loves, lives, opportunities, then we should be doubly willing to make that payment and to support this type of intervention, which can make such a difference in people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
I get the pleasure of introducing to you Brother Lyle Grandison, who currently serves as the executive director of the Circle of Brotherhood. The mission of the Circle of Brotherhood is to involve Black men in solving community problems and to help make our communities decent places to live. Their primary focuses are youth development, crime prevention, and economic sustainability. Brother Lyle has served as an education and human development specialist for more than 20 years, with more than 35 years in youth services. Brother Lyle?
Megan up here for a minute. Where's Megan? And if there's any other, come on, no. Stand on the side. I need to say this. It's very important. And anyone else who was in the meeting that I attended that day, if you're in the room, I want you to come on up here.
Oh, the PAC committee.
Yes, it was more than a PAC meeting. I need to say this from the outset about the thorough, heartfelt work that they've done. I traveled all across this country, working what they consider to be the worst of the worst populations and doing staff development, human development, in terms of being committed to a focus and then being thorough about it. I'm just letting you know. We were laughing the other day because someone gave us a quote about who wants to come to dinner if you're on the menu. And I sure was on the menu that day when I came to that meeting. But rightfully so. I just wanted you to know that they thoroughly investigated, questioned, and did everything that you would want a community-based organization to do if people are serious about addressing this issue. And because they invited me here, I just felt it on my heart to say that before we begin. And I want to thank you all for your thorough and your heartfelt, not just presentation, but your representation. Thank you. And so it's interesting here, you know, I was asked to say some words about what's already being done in Miami-Dade. Now, I don't work for the county, but I can tell you from personal work with the Circle of Brotherhood how we got to the table, and we'll end it there. But I will say this for the record, 2 documents that you should get. One of those documents that you should get, it was a letter from the mayor of our county dated on February 20th, 2018, to both the Florida Senate and Florida House of Representatives in response to the Stoneman Douglas shooting. This is something that you should get if you want to know historically what's been going on 2018. The other document, it's a little longer. This is a 12-page document that Mayor Carlos Jimenez sent to the chairman of the Miami-Dade Commission, Honorable Chairman Esteban Bogo, Jr., and it outlines in detail how all $96 million that are being used right now in youth anti-violence initiatives and what programs they're going to. So now that we got that out of the way, the Circle of Brotherhood. I just have to make sure that they're here, first of all. Brotherhood!
Brotherhood!
One brother?
One hood!
Who do we serve?
Our community!
They're here. Okay. They're here. How did we get involved in this track? The Circle of Brotherhood actually came to birth specifically over gun violence. How many of y'all remember when former Detective Ford, now Major Ford, was on First 48? You all don't watch, you haven't seen First 48? Raise your hand if you've seen First 48. All right, okay. Don't you do that to me. And he was investigating a series of homicides and shootings that were taking place in Liberty Square. In all of his 27 years of investigation, he'd never seen the number of shootings that weren't getting the necessary resources or attention behind investigation. It troubled him. And because it troubled him, he went to Commissioner at that time, Michelle Spence-Jones in Miami City. He sat down with her and explained to her the situations, and what she did was this. She said, I don't know what to do, but I do know who to call. So she called about 5 or 6 of us, men in different walks of life in the community. Some community activists, some pastors, some Muslims, some activists. About 5. And let Detective Ford present to us his findings. And we made a promise that day. This was around 2012, 2013. We made a promise that we would never allow ourselves to be disunited when it comes to solving the problems of our community. And I must say to this day, if you don't know much about the Circle of Brotherhood, I need you to know that we're men from all walks of life. We like to say from the streets to the suites. Some of us have seen prison years that go double digits and longer than some of you all in here have been alive. And there's others of us who've never seen the back of a police car. But we're working together to solve our own community problems. So how do we get involved in this process? Number one principle in the Circle of Brotherhood in any issue that we deal with: he who is best qualified, let him lead. For example, if we were dealing with general contracting right now, we'd have another one of our brothers up here by the name of Sam Gilmore.
Yes, we would.
Right?
Yes, sir.
If we were talking about how to have the greatest mom and pop grant program in the entire country,
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't be standing up here,
No, sir.
but Leroy Jones would be standing up here. What am I saying? That the only reason I'm here on this particular issue is because we're not coming to address this issue just from a source of pain and emotion, although we have that. We are no longer pretending that we don't know what solutions work in our community. So, I'll say this and then wrap up. We were, through our work together, building relationships to do things that these men have been volunteering to do for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and making a major impact in communities where other people are afraid to go. So, we've been building some very strong relationships in the communities that have been affected by the highest rates of gun violence, and also having a presence. But one of the things that we saw clear was that you can't ask someone to volunteer for and donate their time for something that is a full-time job. And if they're not full-time resources to back that kind of effort up, no matter how great our ideas are, how great our plans are, we'll never be successful. So I'm gonna fast forward and end. A shooting took place in Liberty Square. And the shooting took place, 4 gentlemen were shot, 2 killed. One of those who we work with directly, ironically, for 3 years, but dried up funding resources didn't allow that relationship and program to continue. But I bring that up because since that time, there's been a synergy and an energy in Miami-Dade County like never before. Partnerships, thorough investigations, exchanging of resources, and right now, as Charles Dickens would say, it is the worst of times, but it's also the best of times. And so we were blessed to present in the Sunshine meeting, and I think you all should get it. It took place on April 12th. At the Sunshine meeting was the mayor of the county, the mayor of Miami City. 1 minute. If you have any questions, just let me know. But in my last nearly 45 seconds, we have developed a very strong relationship with the Miami-Dade Police Department. And I really want to say that Director Perez, he has demonstrated the type of courage and leadership that is needed. And now the cooperation that's going on between Miami Gardens, Miami City, and Miami-Dade, and the work that we've been able to do as a community agency that aren't being done anywhere else in the country, Miami-Dade Commission passed a resolution, and we know our initiative is going to be in our communities. We don't know the scope of what it's going to look like yet. It's too early to tell those things. But I want you to know that there's a group of black men who have experience nationally and who are willing to get between the bullets and the guns of our children. And we know how to transform human life.
First of all, thank you to Pat for putting this together. And I just want to acknowledge, I know that Councilman David Williams was already acknowledged, but also we have Councilwoman Felicia, who just entered the room. I'm not going to go over the GDI because George just basically gave a brief synopsis of it. However, our portion is we've been in partnership with the Miami-Dade County and also with the city of Miami since the inception. It started when I first came here a little over a year ago, and I was appointed as the chief of police for the city of Miami Gardens Police Department, where we had phone conversations. We were trying to find out the best way of us doing this together in partnership. Because what we didn't want to do was one department or one city utilizing one type of organization and another department is going to defeat the purpose. So what we thought about doing, and we've done this for many years, is partnering together and figuring out what is the best organization to use. And I know that a lot of people were like, well, we want something right now. But just like a lot of different things that we deal with, we want to make sure that we had the right one. We didn't want to make sure that we had one organization that we're going to utilize, and then all of a sudden we're changing and going to another organization that defeats the purpose. So it took a lot of research, it took a lot of putting our minds together, looking at the different aspects of the different companies that came forward. And just last year, I believe it was, or earlier this year, a number of us, the different agencies, organizations that you saw on the screen, we traveled to New York and we met with one of the organizations. We listened to exactly what they stated that the GBI included. But even prior to that, I traveled to California. A member of Miami-Dade County traveled to California. A member of City of Miami traveled to California to listen to another organization. So we listened to various organizations to see exactly what would be the best fit for Miami-Dade County, which is us all collectively. With that being said, the decision has been made on a particular organization that we feel would fit Miami-Dade County as a whole, which involves the City of Miami, City of Miami Gardens, and unincorporated Dade County. With this GBI, there's a lot of things that go into play. There's a lot of research that has to be done because within the City of Miami Gardens, and that's what I'm speaking on, there's pockets. There's certain pockets where things occur. So you have to do a lot of analytical research, meaning you have to use a lot of analysts. You have to go ahead, go back historically, looking at various years to see exactly what patterns do you see. So there's a lot of different things that go into play. It's not just a matter of going to a neighborhood and saying, okay, this is what we have to do to solve this issue. You have to look at the historical, as far as the mindsets of the individuals in that area. You have to look and see what resources are needed. So there's a lot of different things that go into play. There's individuals that will be going into various areas and they will be talking to various individuals that will be identified to see exactly what do they need. Do they need jobs? Do they need counseling? Do they need, it's a lot of different things that they may need. So it's not just a matter of taking a gun off the street. And the partnerships that we have, like I stated, we work with, I work with Director Perez all the time. I work with Chief Kalina all the time. Because what we see is a lot of times is you see, say, a firearm, you see it traveling. You may see somebody that gets shot in unincorporated Dade County today, and that gun has traveled to the City of Miami Gardens another day. So things are interconnected. That's why we felt it was important for us to work together. We have, the county figured because their label is Big Brother, that basically we would, what's called piggyback on whatever they ultimately, decide they will look for the project manager for this program, and we will collectively agree to it. So we're working together. It's a tedious program, process, but we're doing what we have to do in order to cease the gun violence that is going on in our respective areas of concern. There's monies that approximately 2 council meetings ago that was set aside. The Honorable Mayor, Oliver Gilbert, City Manager Cameron Benson, and right before the council, they collectively decided to set aside some money in the budget for this program. It's going to be additional monies so that when we do move forward with GBI, there's going to be monies available to make sure that we can get the process moving in the right manner. That's it for me. Any questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Appreciation to all of the distinguished guests here and the distinguished panelists. and for PACT for pulling this forum together. They have been a loud voice, loud advocacy voice for reducing gun violence in Miami-Dade County, and we appreciate PACT. We appreciate all the hard work that they do to hold people accountable and to let justice roll. So basically, my introduction to this model, the group violence intervention model, came in the late 90s, where then Congressman Kendrick Meek, federal judge Patrick White, and myself, we traveled up to Boston, where David Kennedy, who was with the Kennedy School of Government up in Harvard at the time, Gene Rivers, who was the head of the 10-Point Coalition, which was a group of ministers up in Boston, as well as parole and probation, the U.S. attorney, the district attorney, the head of the police department, and all that. We met with all these folks up there. And we learned about the Boston strategy. Now you will say, well, what does the Boston strategy have to do with group violence intervention? Well, at the beginning of the talk, we heard PACT mention that there were 3 initiatives that they were looking at: Cure Violence, the Office of Neighborhood Safety out of Oakland, Richmond, California, and also the group violence intervention. Well, all of those models kind of go back to the Boston strategy. You'll find elements of the Boston strategy in all of those elements. So when we went to Boston, we recognized that this was something that could benefit Miami-Dade County, and actually I thought we could do it better because all of the major players there, they hated each other. They didn't like to work together, but they worked together. And they stuck to a strategy, and the strategy was successful. So here, we have a much better situation, as Brother Lyle mentioned. He says, we got synergy here. We don't hate each other. You know, there's a lot of love in this room, and a lot of love for each other, and a lot of love for humanity. So the nucleus of that Boston strategy was what they call the call-ins. The call-ins are where the individuals in our community that are most likely to shoot or be shot and are attached to groups that have used violence to enforce their business are called in, and they're giving a talk from the moral voice of the community. The moral voice of the community is typically comprised of parents of murdered children, clergy, a returning citizen that is successfully returned back to the community and is doing good, living a crime-free life. And they're all saying a unified talk of we're not going to tolerate violence in our community anymore. And it's done in a dignified way, or it should be in a dignified way. Some jurisdictions don't, but we, I hope, would. It will be dignified, and it will be respectful, and it will be loved, because we don't want to see them getting shot or winding up in prison either, even though they have been identified through extensive research that they are the most likely to shoot or be shot. So we would like to host the call-ins with individuals, and this is where you may come into play, because everyone in this room is a part of that moral voice. And we would hope that everyone would want to be a part of that conversation at one point or another. And immediately after that, we have them directed, the individuals that are there, directed to resources. They'll be able to help them live a successful life. Entrepreneurship, job training and placement, vocational training, behavioral health, basic things. I mean, some people, the only thing in their way of getting a job is having good ID. They can't pay the cost of getting their license back or whatever. So there should be some support, for that as well. There's needs for mentorship. There's needs for opportunities for there to be positive peer leadership mentoring, just like you heard with the Circle of Brotherhood. You have people that have never seen the back of the police car, and then you've had others that have double digits in prison. Well, that's positive peer leadership. That's everybody pulling each other up. So we need to create some opportunities for individuals to be pulled up. And now, if they don't accept that plea from the community and that opportunity to access the resources, well, then there's two programs: federal prison and state prison, because we're not going to tolerate you continuing to victimize our community. And so they will get, those individuals that reject this opportunity will get attention. Some of the job training and placement components that are already in place that will assist greatly is Career Source. They have Employ Miami-Dade program, which Circle of Brotherhood has been very active in getting people into training, into jobs. We're very fortunate in Miami-Dade County, where we have 2 Second Chance Act grantees, Gang Alternative and OIC of South Florida. They have programs where they will fund an individual to get training for a high-paying job. And the requirement for this position is that you have some contact with the criminal justice system. So this is specifically for people that have criminal backgrounds. If you want to do right, that opportunity is there. And they have employers that they cannot fill those positions enough with these individuals that have criminal background. So it's no longer an excuse, well, I've had a criminal background, I can't get a job. No, that's not the case. That opportunity is present, that opportunity is there. Gang Alternative and OIC of Dade County. And then there's Transitioning, who's also a Career Source provider, that their whole focus is assisting people that have criminal backgrounds to get jobs. Other resources, we have every couple of years or so we produce this book. Little small book, but it's full of resources for people returning from prisons and jails and that have criminal background. Very comprehensive. It's available electronically. This is the 2014 edition. There's a 2017 edition, and it's available at WayneRollins.com. You can download it free. And if you want hard copies, just get in contact with us and we'll get you free hard copies for that as well. One of the things that the community can do, in addition to the call-ins, there are reading programs. Circle of Brotherhood, if I'm not mistaken, has a reading program where we go out and we read to small children. We have reading programs with the Miami-Dade Anti-Gang Strategy, where we go to areas that are where there are high incidents of crime, and we read to children. Well, you say, well, what's so big deal about reading? Well, that's the #1 determinant if a person is going to succeed in life and not have in contact with the criminal justice system. If a child can't read, he's going to misbehave, and he will have a high likely chance of encountering the criminal justice system. So this is very important. We will utilize Miami-Dade County's vocational training program, adult education, and any agency that receives money to deliver social and economic programs in Miami-Dade County, we will use them to be able to support successful reintegration of those individuals that choose to do right with this program.
Now we will have Chief Noel Fred, who will speak on the law enforcement part of the gun violence.
Good morning, good afternoon once again. Okay, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Okay, there's different aspects when it comes to policing, like I stressed a little bit before. There's an analytical portion where there's civilians that's within the police department, and what they do is they look at historical data. They look at various areas of the community. They will see exactly the trends, basically where shootings have occurred, how many shootings have occurred, the background of households, zip codes, things of that nature, in order to determine where the shootings may be more prevalent. After that is looked at, we know exactly what areas to focus in, and where the law enforcement portion would be, as well as the piece that Mr. Rainey Rollins was talking about. If they don't comply to participating in the program, after we've talked to them and advised them, listen, we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior in our community, what happens is, you know, because you try on several occasions through conversation, through talk, through community activity, through things that we normally do now, community policing, whether it be you know, going to various neighborhoods, knocking on doors, having conversations, things of that nature. If they don't want to comply, then the result is, okay, this is what the end result is going to be. You're going to be arrested for whatever the crime is. You're going to be arrested. Because what they have to realize is, this is our community. There's maybe a small percentage within the city of Miami Gardens where gun violence, they're the ones who are participating in gun violence. And so with that small pocket, that is the pocket that we will focus on. After we've tried time and time again to have the conversation that Mr. William Rollins is talking about, we've told them exactly, we see them, we see what they're doing. We're not going to tolerate that type of behavior. This is the road that they're going to go down. We've tried to see what resources they need. They don't want to respond to that. So there's different things that we're going to try to throw at them. If they don't, if they're not responsive to that, then the end result is our enforcement piece, where you commit this type of crime, you're going to be arrested. You're going to, we're going to work with the state attorney's office. We're going to work with the public defender's office, and the end result is they're going to go to jail. They're going to go to prison. That's the law enforcement piece of it. Going out there, attacking, strategically attacking, and part of strategic is making sure that we get the right individuals. We're not going to just, back in the day, you would just do a jump out and everybody goes to jail. It's not one of those. You know specifically who your targeted individuals are based on, the historical data, based on trends, based on what they do, and those are the ones that you're targeting. Some of the things that are in the GDI now, we are currently doing. There's a lot of community activities that we're doing. We currently reach out to different schools within the city of Miami Gardens. We talk to a lot of the middle school kids, tell them about not joining gangs, the consequences of joining gangs. We go ahead and do, we have police explorers that we have with the police department. We just initiated a PAL program, just different community policing aspects that we do, having various community events that we talk to various members of the community, have basketball games within our community in order to try to work in partnership with the community. On the other aspects, we are constantly exchanging information, so because like I said before, what we see is things travel. Just because you see that a shooting may occur down in, let's say, the Perrine area, doesn't mean that it doesn't affect City of Miami Gardens in some fashion. It may be that the family of that individual that committed that crime is in the City of Miami Gardens, and they travel. It may be that the individual has traveled from the city of Miramar. So we have to constantly have that communication with all these different agencies to see if there's any particular trend, if we're experiencing the same thing, if it's the same individuals, because they could have committed a crime in one place and then committed a crime somewhere else. So we're constantly having those conversations, we're constantly working together and trying to cease this gun violence that is going on. I don't sleep at night, but that's just how I am. If I see something that's going on in Dade County, I expect my individuals that work for me to go ahead and contact the detectives in Dade County, inquire about what happened with that shooting, to see if there's any kind of connection with the City of Miami Gardens. That's what their job is, that's what I expect them to do. And I, in turn, reach out to Director Perez or Chief Colina, or even as far as Miramar, Dexter Williams, and say, listen, what's going on? What is the historical? We have intel meetings that we have constantly in order to exchange information, because one shooting, wherever it occurs, it affects all of us. And we just don't want that to happen. So that's it for my part. I believe.
Public Defender Martinez.
Okay, so it's my turn. All right. Good morning. Good morning. I first want to thank Pat. They are really insistent, and I love that they're insistent because it has made us all more accountable. Because in reality, we have been looking at these things for a while, but until PACT, and they will call you up. If you're not in PACT, you know, I'm going to tell you how they do it. They will call you up, and they will tell you, will you do X? And if you say, well, I can't do X, they tell you, oh, so the answer is no. And then when they have their event, they will call you out. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing or what's expected of us, they will call us out. And I appreciate that because we all need to be held accountable. So that was the first thing that I wanted to mention. I am Carlos Martinez, I'm Miami-Dade Public Defender. I have the honor of serving this county and everyone in this community. I can tell you that Miami-Dade County is very different from the rest of the country. If you haven't heard it yet, I can tell you that we're very different in one really unique way. When I was part of the team that went to John Jay College to view the program, the gun violence intervention, and they said to us, you're the first public defender that has come as part of any team. Now, that was not a surprise to me because 20 years before that, Wayne Rollins, I don't know how many of you remember Weed and Seed in Miami, right? Yes. Well, public defenders didn't like the seeding part of that. And public defenders around the country, we were united in we're not gonna have any part of the weeding part because that's just targeting black communities. However, this gentleman, Wayne Rollins, approached me and said, I wanna work with you on the seeding part. And Wayne Rollins took me to a conference where I was the only public defender and there were 500 people. And when I introduced myself, you could hear, ooh, throughout the whole place. But you know what? Wayne Rollins got us funding to start the Youth Academy, Youth Leadership Academy. And they paid my office so I could have a social worker in Liberty City just working with kids. So there's a history in Miami of working together across functions that you would think they don't work together. So let me mention to you what I see really important as part of what happened at John Jay College. There was a clear commitment. There's clear money that has already been dedicated from the Miami-Dade Police Department. They're the ones that put their money where their mouth is. Before the county even said, oh, we'll allocate X amount. Miami-Dade said, we're gonna do it with our existing funds. We're gonna start it up. And I'm glad Miami Gardens is also doing it, and I know the city of Miami is gonna do it as well. The help that we need from the community to make sure that this happens is keep up the pressure. Keep up the pressure. There needs to be money allocated that is not a one-time thing, so that we know this first year, it is not going to be easy going. Number one, let's lower expectations. It is not gonna be easy going. The trust is not there. So we're gonna have to build trust so that people, when everyone's saying, okay, we're gonna go in, we're gonna target these folks, we have got to build trust. So it's gonna have to be very difficult conversations going on, starting the call-ins, and making sure that the services are there. Those are gonna have to be the first steps. And making sure that the community knows this is not only what we intend to do, this is what we're doing. And when there's a problem in implementation, we need to be transparent, we need to be very clear. I'm gonna mention one thing with Weed and Seed 20 years ago. When we got brought in, and at the time from the U.S. Attorney's Office, I'm drawing a blank right now. Patrick White. I get a call from the ACLU, and they were really upset that we had joined Weed and Seed. I get a call from ACLU, and they tell me there are all these ridiculous loitering and prowling arrests happening in Liberty City, and they tell me the address, and I'm like, that cannot be, because Wayne Rollins, Patrick White, they all told me that they were not gonna be doing these sweep arrests, going to a corner and just sweeping black people up. That cannot be. So I called my folks at the first appearance of the bond hearing. Bring me the arrest affidavits. As soon as court is done, I wanna see the arrest affidavits, because my folks were saying there's Weed and Seed stamped on the arrest affidavits. Sure enough, grab the affidavits, affidavit after affidavit after affidavit. I pick up the phone, called Wayne, and said, what the blank is this? Patrick White calls me back and says, that will stop today. And guess what? We followed it for 60 days, not another arrest of a bunch of people at our corner. So it requires vigilance. So that's why I'm here. And Brother Lyle, I'm glad that you mentioned the quote of, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I'm here to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable to the promises that we're making to the community, that we are going to address this in a very surgical way so that we increase the legitimacy of the system, increase respect, and frankly, we make people feel safer. There's a lot of stuff happening in the communities. I don't have to deal with it. I live in the city of Miami, in Shenandoah. There are no shootings in Shenandoah. So when I go to sleep, I don't have to be waking up by shots. That is a horrible way to live, to be hearing that all the time. And it affects your health, and it affects your future. And it doesn't mean that you're gonna become a criminal, but it is going to impact your trajectory in terms of your economic survival, because you're gonna have trauma, and if you don't address that trauma, it's gonna have an impact on you. So I know, I'm surprised nobody's with a sign a minute, but I'll try to wrap it up pretty quickly. So one of the things that I hope that we can do beyond this, because this is an important program, this is targeted, but we have to do, in my book, I think we have to do two more things. One of them is we have got to break down the barriers that are keeping people from getting jobs. So whenever you have people that are ex-offenders that have served their time after a particular period of time, give me a break. Stop using it against them. So we've got to change Florida law on that. And we got to go further than that. In Florida right now, if you get an arrest record, and even if you're not guilty of the charge, even if you don't plead guilty to the charge, and you want to seal the record, you can only seal it once. Even though you have no convictions, you can only seal it once. So guess what? Every time you're stopped, you have a presumption of guilt, because you have a lengthy record of just arrest. We've got to change that too. You got to wipe it out. You got to wipe it out. If there's no conviction, wipe it out. Wipe it out. Because our system is based on the presumption of innocence. So if you're not convicted, wipe it out. Automatically, don't charge $75 to wipe it out. So what I'm saying is we have got to reform Florida law. This is one aspect of it, very targeted gun violence, but we've got to eliminate the reasons why people get involved in all sorts of craziness, right? So we need the commitment from the community and from PACT that we have got to focus the legislature on getting sealing and expungement reform done. We've got to get that done. The last item that I have mentioned, 1 minute, there you are, okay. So the last thing that we really need to do, and I have brought it up to the CRB, Community Relations Board, and I brought it up to the county, is we have got to heal the unseen wounds. We've got to heal the unseen wounds. Because every time a shooting happens in the community, if it's a contact shooting, if it's a death, guess what? Those are not the only victims. Those are not the only victims. There are people in that community. So one of the things that I suggested to Miami-Dade County, the commission, is that we have got to set something up that I don't know if it's been done anywhere in the country, but we've got to set something up, a crisis healing team or something to that effect, that when these things happen, people go out to the community. We have a victim services center, and my time's up, but I'm gonna take 30 seconds. Victim Services Center on US 1 and other places in Miami-Dade County. That's where people go there. You know what? We need to go out to the community, to where it happens. Go to where it happens, speak to those people, and try to figure out how can we help them heal. So that was my second thing. So thank you so much for all of you being here.
Wow. So, as was mentioned, my name is Jessica Sinkfield. I am the Assistant State Attorney with the Miami-Dade County State Attorney's Office, where Catherine Fernandez-Rundo is your state attorney. She has been a forefront supporter of this initiative, of this program, and this organization from its inception. But I want to turn, I was asked to talk about the call-in process, and I think Wayne did a great job about that. I want to turn to you and how this is amazing to have all of these people here on a Saturday morning to talk about what no one believes that people are talking about. To have the community, young, old, all together talking about our issues. As a community prosecutor, it's my job to know everybody, be everywhere. I like to joke and say, be up in the business and make sure that the community concerns are heard by the state attorney, and likewise when we have initiatives that the community knows about it. And I have to admit that watching the news can be very stressful to me. We get briefings, and so I've actually elected not to watch the news, because if it's a big incident, I'm gonna get an email about it anyway the next morning at work. I am a proud Miami Gardens resident. I am a proud Miami Gardens resident. And let me tell you, I love going to the post office. My mail lady, she says, "Hey baby, good morning." My neighbors, they love me. I love my community. The only time that I feel anxious and I feel nervous about being a Miami Gardens resident is when I turn on the news. I mean, I let somebody just point and say yes. I love my community. So why am I saying that? I want to first start out by applauding everyone being here, because people don't believe that we care about our community. They don't believe that we're entertaining conversations about solutions. So I have to applaud everyone for being here. Second, I have to applaud our police chief. Absolutely. Although you may not be able to see it, and she mentioned that she doesn't sleep, I'm able to speak as a resident and as a prosecutor. The work that she does, you will never know. Miami Gardens has one of the most innovative community policing and policing, as a matter of fact, programs with the intelligence center that they have technology that nobody in the county has. Their community policing program, they are everywhere, okay? I know my 2 council people that are here. I know their Monday meetings and their science projects that they have. They're absolutely involved. We just need to tell the world, and we need the world to be involved. So I'm happy that everyone is here to learn about this out-of-the-box program. I will tell you that extensive prosecution will not solve this issue. And so I'm so happy that we're here to talk about something that is different and new and innovative. And numbers are everything for us. We recently looked at the top 100 and the top 10. For example, most dangerous cities in the state of Florida. Miami Gardens was not one of those top 10. But look at the 3 jurisdictions that are here in this innovative program. Look at the 3 jurisdictions that are helping to spearhead it. Guess who's here? Miami Gardens. Okay, I'll tell you, I'm a countywide prosecutor, okay? My position is the entire county. There are certainly other jurisdictions that absolutely deserve to be here. But guess who is the one that is volunteering their time? We're in full support of the program, the piece that I was asked to speak about, the call-ins. We're still working it out. It's very nuanced. There are constitutional protections that a potential offender has, but I'm assuming we are the teeth to the program. You can't, tell somebody, listen, straighten up, without something there to kind of carrot or dangle over them. And we are prepared to move forward. But we also want to provide resources. We do seal and expunge programs. We have staff members in the community pretty much every day. I'm in Liberty City, Miami Gardens every single week. We're down south. We have people that we bring to the community, to community centers, and we just show up. Do you need advice about legal issues? Do you need your record sealed or expunged? That's what we're doing. And we're hoping to be a part of the resource element as well as the teeth element to this program. Thank you so much.
Allow me just to thank our panelists for the information that they have provided us. I went from 21 questions to 11. So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I now have 11 questions that I need to ask. And some of you touched on it. We just want to know the specifics. And we want to thank you all for your questions. And we're going to make sure that if we don't.
There really is no jurisdictional mandate for a person to show up. However, in the invitation letter that goes out, often from the sheriff's office in here, the sheriff's in Miami-Dade County would be the Miami-Dade Police Department. It doesn't have to be, but one of the law enforcement entities would send a letter of invitation. And typically there's mention of the data that has identified that individual in terms of the number of their arrests, the serious violent crimes that they have allegedly committed, or whatever mentioned in that letter, so that the person knows that that people know exactly what their background is. And then there is the invitation for them to bring a family member or to bring a loved one with them. And then typically it's mentioned that they will not be arrested for coming to the call-in. Now, if you do something that's against law at call-in, that's something else. But and that, of course, you will be able to access these resources and whatnot. So typically, John Jay College, they have found that more often than not, people do show up for the call-ins.
Okay. Now, once they receive that invitation and we expect for them to come in, if they don't come, what happens? Is there some type of follow-up or?
Well, I mean, the law enforcement piece, they're going to continue to do what they do in terms of watching these individuals, because they are already individuals that have proven to be the most likely to shoot or be shot. And we don't want to see them hurting anyone or them getting hurt themselves. So there is that attention There's also what they call, the model has focus deterrent. You know, like to walk in one stop, we go out to a community where there's been a recent shooting. The focus deterrent, you can go to that individual's house with a team of individuals to offer them those services and resources, the same way we would do at a call-in, but going right directly to their house and letting them know, we know who you are, we know what you've done in the past, take advantage of all these different resources.
In just response to that as well, there's another unique thing about where we are in Miami-Dade County right now in reference to the gun violence initiative is simultaneously, there is also a program that we've introduced to the county called the Peacemakers Program. And there's a lot of unique elements that combine themselves together. So one of the things that's critical about the individuals that will be called in, who you have in front of them is critical. And one of the beautiful things about, you know, as the nuance is being worked out, you know, let's kind of keep it real, dear family. Some of us have our ears to the streets. Some of us have access to the hearts and minds of the most unreachable people you may think are unreachable. And I have to be honest with you, in our role and our involvement, can't put it down in the grant, but our secret ingredient is love. And the success that we have with reaching this population is impeccable. But as our captain said earlier, you know, we tell no lies and claim no easy victory, but ready to go to work on it.
Thank you. Another question that we had was, what happens if a GVI program participant, so they've already accepted the invitation, they're already in the program. What happens if they commit a crime that's not related to gun violence and considered a minor misdemeanor? What happens? We all make mistakes. So what happens if they're in the program but they're caught up?
That would be me. That piece is still being worked out in terms of how, I guess the prosecution piece. So you'll have to speak to the other members about in terms of what specific crimes that law enforcement will be targeting. But from my understanding, it's a holistic approach, and we're still kind of massaging and working out what exactly will happen, I guess, prosecutorially. And I don't know if anybody has.
So I'm glad whoever asked that question. I'm gonna bring that up at our meeting, because we're the public defender's office, and if we have represented that person in the past, and they pick up a misdemeanor, a lot of times what happens with the misdemeanors, they give them a promise to appear, and unfortunately, in a lot of promises to appear, the people don't show up to court, they get a bench warrant, they end up in jail. So what I'm gonna ask, in talking to the state attorney and everybody else, is that we get contacted when that happens and we get appointed on the case so that we can work it out and try to figure it out. In some other jurisdictions, what they have done is the people that are cooperating and not engaging in violence, they give them a break on parking tickets, on things that are going on in their neighborhood that they may be engaged in that is not exactly correct. So a lot of things are not gonna be said publicly. I can tell you, law enforcement is not gonna admit to some of the things they're not gonna do. But if there's an arrest, I would hope, and what I'm gonna be asking is to be appointed on those cases so that we're aware, because that, you know, that is something that can happen to that person that can either erode trust or it could increase trust depending on what you do with it.
And I have one more thing. I want to make sure that, and Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, that you all understand that a key point to this program is community participation. Oftentimes in other jurisdictions where I've seen where this is replicated, at the call-in will be the victim of the crime. And of course, with the state attorney's office, we won't go forward with the program unless that victim agrees. So I don't want you guys to think that these people are gonna have a free-for-all as long as they're a part of this program, but it really is involving that person. And oftentimes, when they're confronted with a person whose vehicle they stole, or someone who, was affected by their crime, it makes it real to them. And they understand that this person sitting there is saying, listen, I want you to win. even though you took from me and you damaged me, it's more valuable to me for you to gain from this program and move forward. So it's a community effort.
Thank you. We know that the program is geared towards 18 to 24 years old, that age group. Are 16 and 17-year-olds considered violent offenders? Are they eligible to participate? Or is there another program, or?
I'll respond in this way. I want you all to keep in mind something that was said very clearly. We're not doing a cookie cutter program. One of the beautiful things about this particular model, it allows the communities and the agencies that take it on to tailor make it. And so we're not gonna sit up here and pretend that that's where we are right now. We got all the components, and as we sit down, we'll work those things out. But one of the beautiful things about the components is you have individuals who are involved in this initiative that work with that 16 to 24-year-old population. And you talk about the kind of work that's done on the ground in the community, everyone in the community is going to be affected by this work. The little children are going to be affected by this work. This is real community work going on at the same time. And so no one who we come into contact with that needs services will not have an opportunity to move forward.
And I just want to say one thing. The partnership that I put up earlier includes the Department of Juvenile Justice, both at the county level and at the state level.
As well as the civil citation programs that are being implemented by my office as well as Miami Gardens, that does give young people a second chance if they've committed a crime.
And where the 18 to 24, came into play, it's like what I was talking about before. Statistical data, when you bring in statistical data, you're looking at a lot of different things. And after you evaluate, you start to see what the age range may be of who's committing these type of crimes. So after you look at all that data, you say, well, the age range is between 18 to 24 of the offenders that are mostly committing a crime. Not saying that those are the only ones who you're going to assist.
Okay.
So that's where the 18 to 24 came from.
Okay, thank you. Also, I have one question here. What aspect of this program will speak to the self-concept of our young black men? Things like critical thinking. I think, Brother Lau, your circle of brotherhood is probably already working to empower our young black men. You would like to speak on that?
Yes, and I'll just take 30 seconds because I'm gonna give you all an invitation to follow up on it so you can see firsthand. I guess I don't need a mic? No. That's fine. Okay, absolutely. Number one, we work with this population across the country and have been for the last 100 years or so. But right now going on is our summer youth employment program, which specifically is targeting young men between the age of 14 and 18 in the critically most violent neighborhoods, both in North Dade and South Dade. If any of you want to stop by and see the progress that's been done with these young men, and we particularly, with the 36 young men we have at D.A. Dorsey, we particularly reserved 10 of those slots for individuals who lived right around the last shooting that occurred in Liberty Square. Come see how great they're doing and the transformation they're having. We're with them every day from 9 to 2. The state's attorney's office has done an awesome job at partnering with us, not only working with that population, but actually give us an opportunity to run our Leadership Academy for that through the Denise Moon Grant. If you live down south or you just want to travel so you can see the synergy that's going on all throughout Dade, we also have another group of 20 that are at South Dade every day, Monday through Friday from 9 to 2, they're with us. And come in and just start asking them questions about their experience. We're very transparent.
Another question spoke about the school districts and administrators. Are they involved in working with this program, or will you have them involved to help identify potential participants?
Yeah, that's a part of the component. You want to see, when you're doing the research on the individual, you want to see what type of schooling they've had, if they're a high school dropout, if if they're like on the cusp of 17 years of age and they haven't been attending school, all that comes into play. One of the agencies that an Armani Gardens Police Department does work with is school board, because that is a very important component to see exactly the workup on that individual. Why is it that they're missing school? You want to know that. You want to get inside of that household. Is it because maybe there's something going on with the parents that they're not able to allow that child to go to school? Is it that inside of the household they don't have food to eat and things of, that took place? So we do work with school board, and we will continue to work with school board.
Another question here, and you, I think Mr. Rollins touched on it, but is there a component of GBI that provides mentoring for persons transitioning out of prison? I think you did speak on it.
Yeah, definitely. We're already in the prisons actively, and we work with returning citizens throughout Miami-Dade County and throughout South Florida, for that matter. So yes, that work will continue with this initiative, and we will be supportive of whatever the GBI is doing in terms of working with returning citizens. Like I mentioned, we produce the guide, but not only we produce the guide, we also create some of that same synergy amongst agencies to provide resources. And I'll pass this around if anybody's interested in.
And Wayne? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wayne also mentioned earlier the Employee Miami-Dade program. And when we brought the Employee Miami-Dade program to the mayor, we really applaud, is that we actually brought a training program targeting that particular population spoken about, but we designed it for 400 people. When he saw the program and the model that we developed, he said thousands of people need to go through this training. And some people come from Missouri, even though they live in Miami. When we implemented the program in December of 2014, some of you all can do the math of some of the prosecutions that took place with a particular group of individuals about 20 years or so ago, right? I won't mention any names, and when you don't mention names, I think you say John Doe, right? 8 of those individuals came through our training program. Out of those 8 individuals, upon their release, that came through our training program, 1 of them reoffended, everyone else went to work, and 1 of them was actually highlighted on the mayor's annual report for his growth and development from a labor construction worker up to a manager. This is a population, again, that if you have the right people in front of you, doing the right thing, transformation can take place. And I do need to say this. How many men in this audience, have had what they might call a checkered past, but you received transformation and your life is now being a productive citizen? Any men out there? So the reality is, when you have the right people involved, the results will speak for themselves.
That's right. One question, are there any financial incentives for participating in the GBI program? I know we talked about job training and helping them find employment. Is there any other financial incentives?
Not trying to dominate, but you're asking the questions, and we have one of the things about the Employee Miami-Dade program is before the individuals go into their actual trade or training, and we started with just construction, they come through a 4-week mental toughness, self-improvement training class. Every day they're in class, they're paid. They receive a stipend at the end of the 4 weeks for $500. At the end of their actual training, which started as construction, now we have construction, security, culinary arts, hospitality, and information technology. And with those, they receive a stipend for every week completing that program. Even the program you mentioned earlier, OIC, has incentives that they offer to individuals who fit that category. So absolutely.
Okay. How will the program be publicized? What are we going to do to get, this is one way, but what else are we going to do to get the information to the community?
In terms of the interactions, I believe that the community team and the people who know the people who know the community will go. Law enforcement will identify, and then the community team will reach out to them. I'm not sure if I'm answering your specific question.
A lot of it is getting back to basics and going to the various residents and letting those individuals know exactly this is what the program is about, this is what's going to be available, these are the different aspects of the program. So basically, just like it's election time now, you know how you would go out and go to the various neighborhoods, the various houses that hadn't been identified, and having that conversation.
And churches.
Yeah, churches.
Okay, so what are the target neighborhoods for Miami Gardens? Or areas?
You have, and lately it's been switching, and we've had to make sure that we update our numbers and whatnot. But at the time when we did our research, it was the Bunch Park area, Myrtle Grove area, 175, 24 Avenue, Myrtle Grove area. And you had the Leslie Estates area, which is like 191st between 27th Avenue to like 32nd Avenue areas. Years before that, it was the Vista Verde area. So once we go ahead and say we're initiating the program, we'll do another analysis to make sure that we're right on point with the targeted areas, but those basically are the areas of concern.
Question from the audience, when can we expect the program to be started?
Well, October, we're supposed to be before the BCC for the final presentation. Once that happens, it's going to be, you know, very shortly thereafterwards. I think, you know, the teams that are going to be providing the services are ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Speaking to the long-term funding of this program, so a three-part question. Where's the money for the program coming from? Is it grant money? What happens when that money runs out? And the concern is long-term funding.
Well, there's no grant funding right now. We're looking at potentially sustainability-wise, identifying some different, you know, grants down the road. You know, it's kind of a little bit, you know, you're asking that question, and that's a little bit of a moving target because, you know, we're still, you know, scoping out this project. You know, part of the whole implementation is that once we contract with national networks, they're going to, you know, do an analysis, and they're going to identify the areas that need the intervention. And once we get those areas, then we will be able to determine how much manpower is needed and what is needed to go into those areas. So, you know, we really don't know yet how much this could potentially cost. I mean, we know what the national networks is going to cost, but I don't know yet what the scope is going to cost. So, you know, it's kind of like I said, that's a little bit of a moving target. But we do have monies that has been committed by the commission and the mayor to fund this program. We have that commitment. You know, like I said, there's no grants. And as far as sustainability, I think that the mayor and the commission are committed to ensuring that this program continues. I think that once we initiate it and we start to see the impact that it's going to have, I think it's going to be, you know, a no-brainer. And I was saying earlier that I have friends of mine that work in some of these other cities where these programs are implemented, and they have been there for years, very successful, and that's just another item that's in the budget to sustain the program.
And Chief, what is the dollar amount set aside for Miami Gardens and for how many years?
The county is pretty much, they agreed to set aside the majority of the money. We've said, what has been decided a couple of council meetings ago was over a 3-year program, 3-year period, a little over $300,000 set aside in the budget as additional funding for right now.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Andre Green. I'm of Mount Hermon AME Church right here in Miami Gardens, and I'm also a member of PAC. I sit on their board and on the Gun Violence Committee. After hearing all the information today and recognizing all the various entities that are involved in making this process, this program a success, we want to stress the importance of cohesiveness, that we all the organizations and everybody has to come together to make this work. We need everyone to be on the same page for this group violence program if it's going to work. As a PAC community, we're here and we're watching. And we want this program to come to fruition. We just heard some staggering statistics earlier by Daryl when he was talking about the cost of what shootings and victims and things like that are. And we know that people are being shot every day. We actually needed this program to be started yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay? We're looking for all our public officials who are present here today and our leaders to be leaders, to show leadership. And we're here to support you in every step of the way. Lastly, I wanted to close by sharing why this issue is important to me. Gun violence has affected my life in many ways. A close relationship of mine that I had many years ago, her son was shot and killed. And I remember going through the trial with her and her other son and seeing the broad-reaching ramifications of the young shooter's actions. Many of my friends that I grew up with ended up, in the gang lifestyle. I had one of my friends, particular, his name was Future Shock. That right there tells you a little bit about the individual. But he was an incredible athlete. I'm from Akron, Ohio, and he was one of the best basketball players that I've seen. And I wonder sometimes what would a program like this would have done, group violence interventions, how it would have affected his life. He could have been the next LeBron James. He was that good when we was growing up. But the gang life, myself personally, I was a part of the gang myself, and one of the things that helped me was that I played football, and I had my mother, and I had some very positive influences in my life. And, I think about that, and, I think about it now, what this program that we're doing now in our community, how it would have impacted that young man's life, if he would have been able to become a professional basketball player, or, would he had a family, would he had a job. From what I understand that, he was shot a couple of times. He, inflicted violence on other people, and I believe that he went to prison for a little while. And I think about how productive his life would have been if he would have had someone reaching out like we're trying to reach out to our community now, where he would be today if he would be a productive citizen, living his life and things like that. So I want to thank all the public officials that were here, and the leaders were here, and the staff, and everybody here, that we're all a part of this, and we can all help transform lives. And that this program has the power to transform lives. And in my closing, I just want to thank you all. And now I want to turn it over to Reverend Anna Price for the closing prayer. And also, I want to tell the people that were on the agenda and the PAC members to stay for a brief evaluation after the prayer. Okay? Thank you all for coming.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's important, in my view, that we constantly reiterate what PACT is about.
Yes.
This is people acting for community. What's the last word?
Together.
What did you say?
Together.
If not us, who?
Yes.
If not now, when?
Now.
When we understand what PACT is about and that it is a collaboration. See, sometimes we contrive divisions. There is no divisiveness in the human race and in the concerns that we have for our community. PACT transcends any particular doctrine, any religion, any selfish interests that we may have as a church, as a synagogue, as a temple, as a university. So when we recognize and understand that, we can truly be channels for change.
Amen.
This is an absolutely, see, you give me the closing prayer, you don't realize that I spent 18 months as a chaplain in the Department of Corrections in Florida. I've been in the vineyard for many years. I have seen the victims of crime in prison and out. This is too crucial for us not to leave here knowing that each one of us has an assignment.
That's right.
It is important for us to be a part of the solution, or we accept that we are part of the problem. So in that consciousness of love, the idea and divine mind of universal oneness, I want you to close your eyes if you so wish and can. Because when we do, we take our attention from anything in the outer, focusing on the love, oneness, the consciousness that each of us has brought to this place this day. And we call upon our awareness of the omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience of God. Accepting and knowing that the scripture that lays the foundation for people acting for community together is Micah 6:8. And Micah 6:8 says, "He has told us, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God." And God, we say thank you for this opportunity to come together, to make a commitment or recommit ourselves to being channels through which peace comes and touches each one of us. We thank you for those who have said yes, representing all of your children, no matter religion, no matter any particular divisiveness that we have said yes to. We thank you for this opportunity to be one, to come together as your people, acting for community together. And we go forth this day, trusting and knowing that we are guided in your will and your way, and that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. It is in the name and the nature of Jesus the Christ that we go forth, knowing that all is well. Amen.
Amen. And amen.